Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are thrilled you could join us today. In today's session, we are going to cover a topic crucial for many organizations: migrating data to modern cloud platforms like Google BigQuery and Snowflake, all powered with AI at the foundational level. Instead of slides, we are aiming for a dynamic conversation over the next 30 minutes, followed by a practical demo. So stick around, have your questions ready, put them in the Q&A area, which is available in the panel in the top, in the bottom left, bottom right corner. If you can navigate there, you'll find Q&A icon there. And hang around till the end because there's a surprise reward for the lucky few. Now, what do you expect out of this, whether you're a technology executive, data or AI evangelist, developer or analyst? We believe that you will find the insights useful and these insights will resonate deeply with you in real world context, right? So with that, I, your host, Joy Mukherjee, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Anjana Bhatti, who is the Chief Technology Officer and Data Migration Expert, and will be helping us get deep insights into the migration to modern cloud platforms today. Anjana, well, could you tell our audience a bit about your background in this space, please?
Sure. Thank you, Joy, for the great introduction and setting the context. Uh, Glad to be hosting this webinar together. As everyone knows, I'm a technologist at heart and passionate about helping organizations navigate varied complexity in data modernization. Right. So over my entire career, I've led and participated in a number of migrations for different size and scale of organizations, and especially having moved data workloads to platforms like BigQuery and Snowflake, that makes and uh, shows the complexities of the migration overall. I myself am a certification, multiple certification holders. For example, I have a Google Cloud Professional Data Engineer. I'm a Snowflake Pro Core, and I'm also AWS certified solution architect, right? And I have a team of about 60, 70 odd people who are primarily focused on working on data solutions. In my last 9 years working with BluePy, it's of course has been incredibly rewarding, and I've helped customers unlock real value in their data through the modernization initiatives that we've picked up.
That's fantastic, Anjana. Exactly, I think, what our audience needs today and what is the need of the hour in the industry. So, can you please tell our audience why is everyone talking about migrating and what's pushing organizations towards these modern cloud platforms?
That's quite a fundamental question, isn't it? So there are a few key drivers that, at least in my experience, that I have seen, organizations take up their modernization or migration journey. Firstly, it's cost efficiency, right? So when you're talking about legacy platforms, it is actually now becoming very expensive to maintain and scale. With the data volumes increasing, with the different sort of use cases coming up, hosting your solutions on an on-prem legacy platform, it's extremely costly, and of course it's definitely difficult to scale, right? So it requires a lot of maintenance overhead and so on and so forth. It's better to move to a more cloud platform based solution where the costing is more flexible and you have pay as you go models, right? So it brings up a significant cost savings that's there. Apart from that, the powerful desire to leverage a more modern, capable, AI-driven, and better governed platform,
Uh-huh.
we call this a modern cloud data stack, right? And this modernity, of course, comes with huge benefits. One is, of course, scalability and flexibility. You can scale to infinite. Of course, there's a cost to it. There's advanced analytics and AI capabilities that just come out of the box. Right? You don't have to do a lot about it. There's robust governance and security. Security being one of the critical aspects of moving data from on-prem to cloud, and that kind of comes out of the box, and that's the heart of the solution. And then, of course, there's a capability to continuously improve, right? Because you're hosting on cloud platforms like Google, Snowflake, etc., who are constantly releasing newer updates, newer features, and you just get access to all of them.
Right. Fundamental, right? IS, PaaS, and SaaS, all three in the same stack. That sounds very appealing. Um, I think this is a good time to go for a poll and see what our audience is thinking about as key questions at the top of their mind. Let's look at some questions here. Okay, I would really appreciate people if you could give a bit of time to respond to the poll. We'll pause for 10 seconds and see what is on the top of your mind as an audience today. So while the poll has been running for some time now, we'll try and close it in the next few seconds. Let's see.
Sorry, Joy, just hold on a second. We are
Sure,
just about to launch the poll. Thank you for bearing with us.
absolutely. Let's give all of our audiences a little time. And we want to see your response because we want to keep this dynamic, interactive. We want to kind of give answers and insights to what is the perceived and your view of what are real world drivers for cloud migration in your context. So the poll is up now. I hope that everybody can view it and respond on that. We'll wait for you a little while and, of course, share back the results. And while we are not looking for a very detailed analysis, it's just what's coming up top of your mind. That's fine enough. And while the results come in, I think we'll wrap up now. We'll close the poll now and let's take a look at the results. Interesting. Anjana, it looks like what resonates most with our audience today is legacy systems and its impact. It's sunset. So the benefits are clear, yet migrating sounds like a massive undertaking, particularly from such legacy systems running for years, so many complex things intertwined together. Isn't migrating difficult, risky, and potentially a multi-year headache?
So you've actually asked a very pertinent questions that everyone, while they know why to move, but how is the real challenge, right? And nobody, the confidence in actually understanding the how and then finally taking this huge undertaking is extremely crucial and important, right? So migrating large established system is of course extremely complex, and it definitely carries its inherent risks. And we're not just moving data tables, right? You're trying to move an entire ecosystem that people have been using for
True.
many number of years to something which is more modern. And then of course they need to sort of understand and uh, take it upon themselves, right? So think about the legacy. Often decades of accumulated complexity exists, right? Maybe rusty data models have been designed for a different purposes, and then there lack layers of backward compatibility. Now if you see, this code has been created over a large amount of time, right? So people have come, they've gone, they've written this code, and somebody else has taken up that code and then maintained it. So there's layers and layers of complexity, and typically what we call as lineage, which is absolutely ambiguous. And of course there's always a lack of documentation, right?
Exactly.
We
Technical
end up
gets
yeah,
nightmare.
right. So this involves an entire ecosystem where the core data models have to be moved, the complex ETL and ELT jobs have to be moved, there must be some established governance rules and security protocols that you end up moving. And then of course there are n number of dashboards that have been created, some for just fun, some which are relevant, and some just exist and nobody is using them, right? So they were just created ad hoc. And then of course data validation process and operational monitoring, right?
Mhm.
The heart of the initial or heart of the biggest problem here is that the organizations often lack an understanding of this complete inventory and the current state that exists. Like I said, no documentation available, right? And nobody can stand up and say, hey, I know this code for the entire X number of years that I've been in the organization and I vouch for it. Nobody is going to take that risk, and you'll seldom find such kind of people, right? So what code is actually running, where are the dependencies, what is the exact picture? Without this clear picture coming out, planning becomes extremely difficult. And with such ambiguity, it's very difficult for people to really say that, hey, now I'm ready to migrate, right? So that clarity has to come into play. Now, of course, you need confidence that everything is going to work correctly post migration, and that confidence traditionally has been coming from rigorous testing, right? But then you can't do a comprehensive test coverage as well. Why? Because you don't know what was built, right? So you can't have a comprehensive list of test cases. And we all know in the data world, the testing methodology is not as mature and robust as it's usually there in the application world. Now, having said that, ensuring that code logics were moved, the data accuracy is there, even the end user reports. If you don't fully grasp the scope of what you're migrating, it's going to definitely become a significant challenge. And planning for that is, of course, it's a nightmarish job.
What I'm hearing, Anjana, is that knowledge is locked in the minds of people, tribal knowledge. It's kind of a desire to get that mind map out to unlock. And if only people could do that, maybe there would be more ease, more confidence, right? But that is really, really very crystal clear in terms of the approach like you mentioned, the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. Um, I'm just wondering whether whether there are any questions from the audience on how to go about this or any other points. So if you could just take a look at the questions submitted by the audience, and people, please feel free to put in your questions. We'll keep on periodically looking at them. Even at the end of the session, we'll pause and go over others which we may not have been able to answer while we were running the session. So here's one great question which has come in from Jayesh. The systems that get migrated typically have been developed over a long period, obviously, and possibly have gone through multiple hands. How to create an inventory of the system that no one understands clearly? Exactly, Anjana.
So that's the so if, like I said, and creating this inventory manually, and that's where we come into picture, right? Where we've built a lot of automation, and that's one of the demos that we'll end up showcasing. You can't really bring in human in doing this inventory creation because nobody can do it. It's not humanly possible, and nobody can go through that code, line by line. And even if they do, it's going to be a work done in months. It definitely is going to stretch your overall migration journey.
So while these challenges are clear, given your experience navigating these complex projects, working with industry leaders of leading organizations, and helping them, of course, what's the secrets to success that you would like to share with our audience today?
Sure. So these challenges, these challenges exist, right? We all know that this is the problem that kind of exists. But what we require is a structured approach. We can't just rely on hope that this is going to happen someday automatically, and it will get done. A few key areas, of course, stand out in this, and this is often where a visual representation help, and we kind of use a process map ourselves as well. I'll just share quickly my screen. Uh, Visible, right?
Yes.
So what we've done is, at a very high level, we've created this, structured approach. We spoke about why, and this is the how bit of it, how to actually go about doing this. So there has to be a crucial step of assessment and planning where your migration goals have to be aligned with, the outcomes that you really want to achieve. Then, of course, you need to choose the right platform where you really want to migrate. This is what you really, want to do. And then what really works out well is doing a quick pilot, right? So you identify a small workload. Of course, after identifying your inventory, you identify that small workload and then finally end up ironing out all the key areas and details during that migration, a pilot migration. And then once that has been established as a process, as a methodology, as expectation, then you can definitely execute at scale and finally, get into the actual migration exercise. Now, like I said, there has to be a rigorous code validation. And So there are three levels of code validations that you do, right? One is a syntactic validation. So you really need to know that the code that you're migrating is syntactically correct or not, because you're trying to move from platform A to platform B, right? Then there is semantic validation. Now, when I say semantic validation, it's the logic. So there is some core business logic that has been written in that code for, a huge amount of time, and nobody knows why a statement exists and what purpose does it serve, right? But you have to migrate it because it's been
Cryptic comment: do not change, things will break. We've all seen that.
exactly. Now, if that happens, then of course you have to, ensure that the code that you've migrated is making that logical sense. And then there are runtime validation where you want to, run the code and see that the input that you've given, because the input remains the same, the output that the code is producing is the same or not, right? So you do a code output validation as well. So that's one level of validation. And these three steps of validation establishes the confidence that the code has been migrated successfully, and then there are no gaps and misses, right? The second thing, which I mentioned above, is of course a comprehensive planning and discovery. So this first phase that you see, which is assessment and planning exercise, it should not be taken lightly. It is as important as doing that code migration, where you actually do an in-depth analysis, do a dependency mapping. You really identify what inventory exists, and of course, like I said, you do it automatically. And of course, define a phased testing approach, the three steps that I mentioned above, and then finally say that, hey, yes, this is how I'm going to plan, and this is what my process is going to look like. And of course, lastly, like I said, it has to be a well-defined process that you establish during the pilot phase. And once established, it's rinse and repeat after that, right? Then executing at scale becomes easy, because you know the process, you know what complexities you're going to get faced, and you know what all different aspects exist in the entire migration. Then you can just pick that process and establish and use it for your larger migration.
Very, very thought-provoking. I just want to kind of highlight a point. It's clear to me. I just wanted to kind of maybe repeat this. What you're talking about really is an enterprise scale, right? So it's a really well thought out strategy, because we are moving stuff of years and maybe decades, and this is really an enterprise plan where foresight is extremely important. So thanks for that, Anjana. Now, if we talk about um, reducing uncertainty and building confidence systematically, how have you and your team at BluePie taken these learnings and built them into tooling to help customers execute fast, best with the practices, as well as get results?
So we recognize these challenges, Joy, in our project execution, right? And especially the need of the detailed analysis and rigorous validation that's required, right? Because the scripts can run into thousands, and the tables that those scripts are generating can run into thousands. We've done migration where there are about 10,000 tables getting produced from about 2,000 scripts, right? Now, this cannot be done at manually, via some manual effort, and it has to be run and done at a different kind of a scale, which does not require a human in the loop, right? So you have to do something automatic here. You will have to build something which does a lot of these process, automates a lot of these process, and then finally uses it. So we've developed a tool called Smart Converter, which addresses these pain points, and it's designed to help automate the entire discovery, accelerate the conversion, and crucially provide multi-layered code and data validation evidences needed for confident migration, right?
Okay. So it's not just a It's just not one part, but the overall flow from identification to actually putting that stuff into the right environment. Awesome. Um, it sounds like the perfect time to see something working, right? Like we promised the audience. So, will you now like to kind of share your screen and show the magic, the secret to success?
Sure, definitely. I'll just share my screen.
Sure.
Just give me a minute. I hope everyone can see my screen.
It's come up.
Since,
And
yeah, sorry,
just
go
for,
on.
just for the sake of the audience, sorry to cut you there, Anjana. If you are having any problems, please let us know by typing in the Q&A as well, and put your questions there again while you're seeing the demo, or if you have any questions from the insights and the session that we have had so far. Over to you, Anjana, again.
Thank you, Joy. So in this demo, what I'm going to sort of explain primarily is that what we've built in terms of automation of conversion, schema, procedures, notebooks. This demo primarily talks about one of the conversion aspects where you have, say, Python code, right, which has been in terms of ETL or Spark code that in terms of ETL that has been written over a past few years, and then that's what you want to migrate, right? So this is, we call it Smart Convert, and is an LLM infused engine for accelerating migration and helping organizations move quickly away from their legacy platforms to a modern edge cloud platform. Now, what you see here on the screen, which is what we call as a dashboard, this is the first screen that you land to after logging in. And here we get a very high level overview of some of the key stats of migration, right? So if you see, you'll see what are the total number of conversions happened, how many of them were successful, how many of them kind of failed, what are the different recent activities that were executed. For example, some of the notebooks I had run, what was their, kind of status, and then of course some of the related pages that you can quickly navigate to. Now this section here that you see on my screen is the main navigation bar, where you of course get to see the dashboard, customers, the different runs, notebooks, and the analytics. Of course, we have a comprehensive documentation as well that we've created for our internal teams to sort of use this tool and implement it in the migration. Now, just to explain a few entities here a bit. So, of course, when we get a migration project, there's a concept of customers, right? So you get a customer for whom you want to run and test a migration. So you'll, go to a customer. You'll probably create a customer via, of course, the creation flow. I'll not create it, but I'll just show you that you'll create a customer. Now, once customer is created, what you will end up doing is you would want to set up some configurations for that customer, right? And then there are a lot of configurations here. And like I said, this is an LLM based, product and tool, and it kind of uses LLM behind the scenes. So this, you can choose the set of models that you want to really work out, right? And of course, the location that you want, what is the kind of validation mode you want? You want a strict validation, you want to go lenient with your validation. Then, of course, the different projects that you want to use and the data set that where you kind of want to migrate to, and some other information. Apart from that, of course, the person who's creating a customer will never execute a migration. So you can, of course, add more people to this entire customer set. For example, I could say, add Anjana to this, project, and she's an executor here, and she's going to become an executor who's going to execute all the migration runs. Anjana gets added as a executor role here, and I can then execute migrations, right? And then, of course, there are some account details, some IDs that, of course, we can generate, and some active summaries, how many runs, how many notebooks executed, how many active users, so on and so forth. Now, of course, in a customer, what the concept that we have is called conversion run, right? So what you would want to do is that once, of course, you've created a customer, you want to run your set of migrations, right? So what we have created here is something called a conversion run. So if I just create one, well, I'll not create one, but just to show you some, sample. So I could do a test run. I could select the model that I want to do. Of course, this can extend to other models as well. Now, once I have all the information selected here, I'll go to configuration. There are different strategies that we use, right? So there are processes that we do. We do an analysis of the code, which tells me what are the different dependencies within the code and how, what are the different complexities within the code. And once that is identified, of course, there are different strategies I end up using here. Then there's a prompt strategy. Prompt strategy is what are the different kind of prompts that I'm going to send to the LLM, right? What is the kind of processing mode that I want to do, whether I just want to do analysis or I want to do conversion or I want to do it. Everything that's out here, and of course the location that I want to do it in, and this is right now showing you for GCP. And of course, what are the validation that I want to do. Now, there are 3 levels of validation that we do here. One is static validation, where I could just do a dry run on BigQuery and I could say that, hey, just do a dry run on BigQuery and see if my code is syntactically correct or not. We do a semantic validation, which again calls an LLM and says that, hey, this is my code, this was my source code. See if I've done the coding right and I've done the migration right and I've not lost any semantic meaning to it. And of course, then there's a reconciliation at the end that actually validates the end output of the code that has run, right? So it goes to the source, takes that input and runs the code here, takes that input and does a validation across whether they match or not. Once that's done, of course, I can review this information and finally create a run. Now, in the last step, I'll upload the notebooks, which is the set of code that I want to convert, right? So it's a set of notebooks that I want to convert. Now, if I just go here, once, of course, I've created this run, I can, go to all my conversion runs and say I want to see one of the conversion runs and really see what are the different.
Anjna, can we take a quick question?
Sure, absolutely.
I see a couple of questions, and I'll take Ravi's one. Is there any limit to the number of notebooks or loads that can be given?
No, there isn't.
Awesome. Awesome. Sorry, please go on. I just wanted to kind of give that answer.
No worries. So once you have, of course, the conversion run created, you can go ahead and finally click on a run like I just did, and look at the different the notebooks that have been migrated. And I can, of course, initiate and start conversion against all of them. This has already started, so I'll not click it again. And once you see, all of these notebooks start coming up and they belong to different statuses. Now, if you see, this is this kind of runs at a scale, and every notebook is kind of getting executed individually. So I'll be able to track progress and the status of each of the notebooks independently, and once they're complete, I can, of course, go to them and see what's happening, right? So this is how it kind of works. Now, going back, I'll show you a few notebooks and more capabilities here. So if I have, say I have a notebook and I have that screen already open. So say I have a notebook which has been already converted and it has already completed, right? This is a screen that you end up seeing. Now then there's a concept of execution. What does an execution mean? Within a run, I'll have a lot of execution, right? Because I would like to execute notebooks multiple times depending on what I really want to change, right? So say I've done one execution, it runs for, there are 10 notebooks in it. It kind of runs for 5 and fails for 5. I would want to tweak something, make a few changes and run it again for just those 5 notebooks. So I'll create a new execution within the same run and select those 5 notebooks and then, finally execute. So there's this concept of execution that comes in. Now for this notebook, what you can really see is that there's a notebook summary that comes up, right? So you'll have the notebook name, when it was created, completed, what's the conversion progress. So there's this concept of LU, the thing that you see here. What is a logical unit? So the logical unit is a logical chunk that has been identified from that code itself and given to LLM individually, right? So those are independent chunks of code that we give as one shot to the LLM so that it can get enough context in terms of conversion, right? So this logical, so there are X number of logical units get created. In this case, there were 5 logical units that got identified. And what I definitely can do is go to each and every logical unit independently. Of course, look at its status and select one of them and see what was my original code, what's my generated SQL against it. if I got some review markers from LLM, because it goes to LLM for validation, it sends back a few comments, right? This is something that can be improved in the code, so on and so forth. You'll see those review markers. You can make those changes here and save those changes here, right? And what it does is that you can individually, if needed, if there's a manual intervention needed, you can, change an LU and then definitely generate a stored procedure. So those valid, those logical chunks of code that you got from your Python notebook, those get converted individually to a SQL, and all of them get clubbed together to form something called as a stored procedure, right? So we'll create this stored procedure using those logical chunks and the converted code. And of course, this stored procedure is then validated against, BigQuery, of course, for dry run. It can do a semantic validation and then finally run the stored procedure and see whether the output that you're getting is kind of validated or not. Now with that, you can, look at the running logs, how your entire, conversion run is performing for this particular notebook. And if something fails, you have access to the logs from here itself, so that you can, end up debugging. And this saves a lot of time for at least our developers. They don't have to go back to the logs and, look at really what's happening and identify. It shows up all the errors and information around that here itself. What we've added here, again, this is potentially can be used by customers or can, definitely be used internally as well. There are some simple, so we've created this LLM chat assistant. What it does is that, you can ask it that, hey, I've got this code, but tell me what is the purpose of this logical unit and explain this. This is the first logical unit, by the way, that I'm talking about. So explain the logic and purpose of this logical unit. So what it does, it goes back and it actually says that, this is what this logical unit does and this is how it can be, fixed. You could also ask that, hey, why don't you suggest test cases for this particular logical unit to me? So it'll identify the different kind of test cases and, identify some gaps, etc., and, show that up. With all of this information coming in, of course, like Joy asked, I can give n number of notebooks to this LLM. It will execute in some amount of time. Typically, a notebook takes about 5 to 10 minutes to sort of convert. Once converted, this code is available here. Of course, it's converted, and then it's kind of ready for consumption, right? This analytics is definitely used by, say, somebody who owns that customer, that how many notebooks are done, how many logical units created, what's my conversion summary, how many actually got successfully converted, and so on and so forth. So somebody can, come here and look what's really happening. Now, this overall kind of expedites the entire journey to, really convert, validate, and finally, give a migration to a customer, which is we are significantly confident about. And of course, customer also gets that confidence by looking at, all of this getting automated. This is all that I had, Joy.
Thank you very much, Anjana. I mean, this is really serious stuff. AI really coming in and helping address so many key points, right? For migration to be a success. I see a few questions which you have already covered, but I'll still acknowledge them. Thank you all for the questions. Questions related to scalability. We've already covered that, Anjana, that this is horizontally and vertically scalable. Questions related to performance. I think you've also covered that it doesn't take a long, it's 5 to 10 minutes typically. Of course, there would be complexity in terms of the number of thousands of lines of code. And I see one more, which is in relation to what is the typical effort saving or timeline reduction? Anjana, any comments on that, please?
We've typically seen a 50 to 60% reduction in timeline and effort, Joy.
Sure. Sure. Well, we'll have an open forum still. And any other questions from folks on the call? So we'll give it a few more seconds for folks. There's a question from Atim. Um, I have a legacy system which has hundreds of stored procedures and thousands of tables. Since stored procedures tightly couple business logic to databases, the desire is to convert it to Python code. And the question is, can the tool help?
So this flow that Athan is talking about is a little opposite to what I just spoke about. So this tool kind of right now converts either stored procedures to stored procedures or Java or Python to stored procedures, and of course that's a schema conversion. So the question really is that, and typically in our experience, what we've seen is that people going and progressing towards more ELT sort of mechanism where code is hosted within the data warehouse that the data is hosted. So maybe the question is that really required, right? And what platforms and tool, etc., are there? And we can delve deep into this question at a later point in time as well.
Sure. And I think one common question I have here is a key question which can be a little tricky to get into. What are the models we have tried, and what are our observations on that? I think the answer is that it's pluggable, plug and play, right? The option is there.
It is.
With this, I think we've answered most of the questions out there. A couple of them are, of course, a repeat of what we have covered. So I think we had a great session. Thank you so much, Anjana, for sharing practically what you have seen, what has been done, what your team and BluePie has been doing and is still doing, what we are bringing to the organizations and the modernization effort that everybody is on top of right now. Thank you all for being here, for your participation, your questions, and for the lucky few, select few, there will be a surprise reward. Have a great day.
Thank you.